Our people are scattered.
Let's talk about Mandalorian Season 3. We got our galaxy getting bigger than it's ever gotten before. However, the scope of things or the focus seems to be getting a little lost. The Star Wars community has been kind of split recently, and for some time now. It's kind of funny due to how it's really like the Sith and the Jedi. You have people who passionately watch everything that Star Wars comes out, but they hate it, and they're trying to tell you to hate everything that you're watching as well. And then you have other people that are passionately watching and love everything, and are trying to tell you to love everything that you're watching. I think there's a middle ground here, obviously. There are some good points, there are some bad points, yeah.
I don't know, like 70% are like super excited about Bo. You got 10% that are like, I hated the whole thing. You know, you got 5% that you just hate Bo. And then you got 2% that want me to sit on their face.
And for Mandalorian Season 3, they're both kind of right. Now, I gotta jump into spoilers here. It's kind of hard to talk about this without going straight into spoilers. But for those of you who haven't watched it yet, here's the rundown. Din Djarin, our main character, kind of turns into a side character because he's already fully developed after the first 2 seasons. Bo-Katan becomes the main character, and we have some B-plots that are loosely connected to the main plot, but they mainly just serve to make the story bigger as a whole for future TV shows and movies. And, well, the main plot of this one is the redemption of Bo-Katan, but the Mandalorian people as a whole. And that's basically it for the season. Now on to spoilers, for real this time. Now, I actually like this season, and I'll go into more of that later. I do enjoy, however, talking about both sides of things, talking about why people may have disliked the movie or the show, and it can be hard at times to speak for the other side, due to the fact that, like, I do go and I read other people's reviews or other people's thoughts, and a lot of times people let their opinions or expectations get in the way of what could be critically reviewed for a show or movie. With that being said, my own opinions completely differ to how I critically analyze a movie or a TV show. So let's talk about the first thing I've already mentioned, expectations. At the end of Book of Boba, we got Din Djarin and Grogu reuniting, and then on the second episode of Season 3, we get Din Djarin completing his task of bathing or redeeming himself in the waters of Mandalore. This could lead to a lot of people's expectations being throttled, thinking that we're going to follow a journey with Din Djarin and seeing him redeem himself and having to go through these possible trials, but only for it to be replaced by Katie Sackhoff's character's Bo-Katan and seeing her really take the lead. And I guess that made people feel robbed of their journey that they thought they were going to have with Din Djarin, because up until now, Season 1 and 2 have been kind of like a problem of the week scenarios where Din Djarin has to solve an issue, and it's a different issue, a different adventure every week, and we thought we were going to get something like that, but on Mandalore, or dealing with having to get baptized on Mandalore. The second part is a lot of people talk about plot. Now, I'm going to be honest here, I could care less about when people say plot, because I feel like anytime people don't like anything, they just say the plot is bad. I don't think they understand how to even use that. However, let's dive into this. The plot here is kind of valid in that the Beast plot kind of expands itself outside of the actual story of Din Djarin and Grogu and what's happening with the Mandalores. We have spies, people from the Empire who are being rehabilitated, and we have space rangers from the New Republic having to deal with politics. There's a lot going on. Now, even though the B plot does come around and connect everything back to the Mandalorians, its real purpose is to set up future TV shows and future movies. However, in doing so, they do a lot of like name drops or like references to past events that happened in the Clone Wars or in the Rebels TV show. And this is the most Marvel Cinematic Universe that Star Wars has felt ever. Because it's almost like you had to know the lore of the universe. Like you had to read the comic books of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to understand who Thanos was. And for casual viewers who have only watched the movies, even there's a lot of people out there who have only watched the original trilogy, and there's a lot even more people out there who have just only watched Mandalorian or have only seen, the 9 films. So I say only 9 films, like that's nothing, but there is a lot of Star Wars out there. So for a lot of the more casual Star Wars audience, they probably didn't understand the references or why we were going out of our way to mention someone who was famously written in a book or who showed up on a cartoon series on Disney Channel. Don't get me wrong though. The Sith hate watchers that I mentioned before, who talked about how the plot was going way out of its way and didn't make sense, they're onto something here, and I agree with them in the point that in expanding the universe, expanding the Star Wars lore and getting us hyped for a future movie or TV show, we kind of lost what was actually happening in the show that we were currently watching, and it takes away from the main plot and makes them have to rush things a little bit more. Now let's talk about the things that I liked about the show, or the things that a lot of people liked about this season, and kind of the good stuff. Hey, I'm Mario. I like playing video games, watching movies, and Dungeons and Dragons. If you keep getting me in your suggested videos, or you're watching this video right here, consider subscribing. It goes a long way. Thank you. Also, let me preference something so you guys know I'm not just saying things just to say things. And when it comes to a matter of opinions or nitpicking, I too kind of was surprised and didn't like the fact that the Djarin's cult or his faction that he's part of ended up kind of turning into the good guys. I really thought that they were gonna start another Mandalorian civil war and that he was gonna have to go against his people, realizing that they are a cult and that they have been misleading him in the wrong ways. However, this season proved to me why I was wrong in thinking that. I originally only thought that because Bo-Katan thought that. And because I'm such a huge Star Wars fan and I've become a huge fan of Bo-Katan, I enjoyed her cameo and her showing up and realizing that she's actually going to be a main player in the series. I was like, well, yeah, she's a reliable source. I agree with what she says. I've seen her be a developed character time and time again. And that's where the genius of this season comes into play. Because Din Djarin is actually the one that's already developed. With the first 2 seasons, we've watched him kind of turn into a different person. We started out where he was just a selfish bounty hunter, kind of just doing as he's told, not really caring about those around him, knowing what to do in his culture, but not really understanding the meaning of his culture. That is until he meets Baby Yoda, and he stops seeing the world as gray, and the world becomes a little more black and white, and he begins making more decisions. And whereas I know realistically the world is more gray, that's never how Star Wars ever is. Star Wars has always been about good versus evil and always trying to do the right thing in bad situations. So now instead of just doing jobs for the sake of doing jobs, he's becoming more honorable. He's turning into a warrior, into a Mandalorian. He's no longer just a mercenary, no longer just a bounty hunter. He is beyond that. He's turned into someone who is loyal to his friends and on multiple occasions is willing to die for other people's noble causes. So by the time season 3 comes around, we already know what Din Djarin wants. He wants to raise Grogu. He wants to teach him the ways of the Mandalore, the way he was raised. He needs to go back to his people and be redeemed. And honestly, that could be entertaining in some ways, but there's no conflict within him as much anymore, or from this point in his life there isn't. But there is for the Mandalorian people, and also who represents the Mandalorian people best, Bo-Katan. I mean, the living conditions have never been great. Who wants to be raised in the sewers, or constantly being attacked by wild beasts, or having to always be on the run, never to be able to show your helmet to anyone because they're going to try to pick a fight with you? You're not respected in the galaxy anymore. All everyone wants to do is just wipe you out. Now this is where things get interesting, because Bo-Katan's people are pure-blooded Mandalorians. However, they've kind of lost their way. They themselves are acting like Din Djarin in the beginning of season 1. They're mercenaries that separate loved ones and have no honor. But Bo-Katan has to learn, just like how Din Djarin learned, that through the armor, that not everyone is an enemy. I mean, think about it. Their mortal enemies were the Jedi. The armor tells Din Djarin that, and he still has to go out of his way to help his mortal enemy, because it's not about hurting the other people for what they believe in. It's about doing what's honorable. It's about doing the right thing. Star Wars. So when Bo-Katan loses everything and has to kind of go through a Heart of Darkness trip into the savages, she learns that they're not so much savages and that they're these warriors that still believe in the old ways and actually hold true to the past that she once believed in. And she now has to bring back her people who think that they're the purists, but they're actually just a gang of mercenaries that'll do anything for a quick buck, into the fold and show that we're not so different after all. We've just all lost our way. Hence, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is what made the season so great for me. This opens up the mythos for Mandalorians. We get to see more of their culture. We get to see what they more believe in. We get to see why they end up in civil wars. And it was through Bo-Katan's conflict, through my own conflict, my own opinion, thinking that the armor and their sect of people were wrong, that I realized that there is unity, and that even though you see things differently, it doesn't mean you have to go and kill each other. And Bo-Katan had to go through that conflict, and she had to go through her own character arc and character journey to achieve that. And I thought that was brilliant, because it's a lot. If you look at Twitter and you look at a bunch of other stuff, a lot of people feel the same way that I did. And I think this season, well, in their eyes, I guess it failed, but this season did provide a good, successful story arc in that process. Okay, I rambled on a lot. I'm sorry. Star Wars is probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about in the world. When it comes to the action scenes and the choreograph in the show, I thought they were really good. A lot of them were placed in corridor, tight, knit scenes where things got itty gritty, but everything was good. I give it a plus. I was able to understand what's going on. The actions were centered. There were a lot of cuts. However, I mean, the special effects blended in with the practical effects and made for some really good things. Because technology advances, the CGI, everything is looking great. We got to see a super battle droid run, which brought some controversy. I don't know why, but I thought that was cool. I like seeing that. To come to a conclusion, overall, Mandalorian Season 3 does a great job in expanding the mythos, the lore, and creating a bigger universe for Star Wars. And that much I can appreciate and I love. And anyone that's a longtime fan will enjoy this as well. And anyone that is casual new can have a better understanding of the culture and what's going on in the Star Wars universe in terms of Mandalorians. However, in attempting to create more TV shows and setting up other movies, they expanded the lore of the universe and the world as well, on top of expanding the Mandalorian mythos, which brought to some kind of plot points needing to be rushed due to the fact that we were focusing on the B plot for entire episodes and really took away from the main story that's going on between the Mandalorians. Which brings me to having to give Mandalorian Season 3 an 8 out of 10. Until next time, play nice. I completely forgot to talk about Moff Gideon. I feel like because of the B plot, things got rushed for him. I mean, he was talking about how he had to create force powers through clones, but we didn't even get to see a Moff Gideon force clone. That would have been super cool. I don't know why they didn't show it. That's like Chekhov's gun right there. Like, how are you going to show something? How are you going to tell us something but not show it? Like, what the heck, man? I don't know. A lot of people are saying that he's not dead. I hope he's dead. But if he dies, that means we don't get to see a force-powered Moff Gideon, which is really disappointing. But I don't know. What do you think? Is Moff Gideon dead?